Today I received an email submission from Robert, I think it's Haag, H-A-A-G, but he's one of, I think, maybe 2 or 3 people that have filled out the form, the questionnaire about impact of Lazaris, concept synergy, and all that. And while it's an incomplete form, and I think all of the forms have been somewhat incomplete to date, and I think there's only 2 or 3 people, this, I think, is the first form that has been positive, meaning it's unequivocally positive in general, which is nice to hear, right? So I think that makes it 50-50 so far. And so I thought I would read, what Robert's experience with Lazaris, et cetera, is. So he's a Lazaris workshop attendee. Too many questions for this non-Asperger's being. So he's obviously picked up on my Asperger's tendencies. So a quick summary that he wants to share. I've been working with Lazaris material since mid-'80s with great success and profound impact, as much or more than I'd hoped for, imagined, and dreamed of. Now, this is actually wonderful for me, because this is the first time anyone has ever said that. So hooray, right? Hooray for reality, hooray for Robert. Hooray for me, because it's nice to hear that that's there, because I think Lazaris talks about if you have one black swan, then you break the trend, right? So I have surmised or assumed that there are people like Robert out there, but no one in my sphere of reference that I know intimately, and it could be, because there's filtering, that I would pick apart, Robert's definition of amazement and success and all that. But anyway, I think an enormous part of reality is believing and feeling that things are wonderful. And so it's really nice to see that with Robert. So I've been working with the Lazaris since the mid-'80s with great success and profound impact, as much or more than I'd hoped for, imagined and dreamed of. So that puts it in the miraculous, territory of beyond what is expected. This is incredible, right? Hooray for Robert. I never expected Lazaris or CS concept synergy to be perfect. And early on had a couple of profound experiences that helped me see that I didn't want to be part of the group or family. I'm an Enneagram 4 and am comfortable with a very independent journey. At the same time, I'm happily married, and our relationship is also more than I'd ever imagined. I'm a bit jealous of you in that territory, Robert, because I've never had that experience. And I think part of that, is, having a very vivid imagination. I mean, nothing comes close to what I've been able to dream and imagine and long for, right? There's just a very big pain gap there. So I notice a sting, of my sadness, bitterness, jealousy that I don't have that peace in my, in my reality. It's painful. At the same time, right, this is, a phenomenal success. And it also supports one of my observations, which is that people on the periphery who take ownership of doing what's right for them generally fare better than people very close to the center of an idea, a dogma, a religion, an organization, a channel, whatever, right? So Robert is doing way better than anyone that I know of at Concept Synergy. And, you know, so this is, yeah, anyway, so he's had some experiences that lead him to not want to be, deeply enmeshed in Concept Synergy or the crowd. And he's creating a wonderful and beautiful life for himself. After spending a couple hours looking over your material and listening to your overview, you seem to be an amazing person, also living your dream consciously. Though there's a typo here, I can discern you are not entirely happy and I can't discern if you are entirely happy and at peace with it or still wrestling with unresolved issues, which of course either way is wonderful. With love and respect and best regards, Robert in Wichita, Kansas. So I think that's also a good seed to some of Robert's success. Like, as I look at this material and as I look at, what I'm doing here on the site, I see 60% pain. I see 40% grief. I see, 20, 30% bitterness, depression. I see 30, 40% shame. I see frustration, I see helplessness, cynicism, 10, 12% cynicism. I see a lot of pain. I see a lot of failure. I see it inside and I see it outside. And that's not Robert's world. And I think that's a little bit of a clue. As to, realizing a reality that is, better than expected. And so what I like about this, and, thank you, Robert, for being, I think, one of 3 people so far to actually, fill out a portion of the survey, and you've made the survey into what works for you. I'm interested in the granular, understanding of what helps and what doesn't help, et cetera, because that's actually whether Concept Synergy has the wisdom to use it or not. That's the type of stuff that a good company owner or a good, politician or whatever would use to make tweaks in very specific areas, because everything can be better. But I would say that from this, that Robert sees me more kindly than I see myself. And as a result, also sees, Concept Synergy more kindly than I see Concept Synergy. And just knowing that that's there, I think, is the most valuable thing. I've always been afraid of going crazy, right? Watching my parents go crazy in both directions. They were amazing spiritual beings, going off in that direction, and they're so horrible they can't talk about this, that, and the other, going off in that direction, and this never happened, and that never... I'm terrified of using my empathy, which is a very strong trait, to go crazy. Right? Because the people who go crazy cannot face or don't want to face certain painful things that they would have to face if they were sane. And so they beg desperately, please, please, please go crazy with me, go crazy, so that we don't have to look at this, so that it doesn't become real. I'll give you this and this if you'll only go crazy for me. And it's so tempting, right? Because I'm so alone, I'm so lonely, to go crazy with the many offers to go crazy, right? To go crazy this. Pretend this is not what's happening, and we'll get along delightfully. Pretend, that you never saw that, and we'll get along just fine. It's so lonely, right? Because craziness is its own kind of loneliness, right? I only love you because I pretend you're someone different than you are. That's lonely, right? You only love me. I only love myself. Let's start with that. I only love myself because I pretend to be different. I delude myself. I can't love what I see, so I delude myself, and then I can love the delusion. But what a lonely form of self-love, right? And so, being pushed through empathy and trauma into the edge of insanity in so many different directions, I have a very strong instinct not to go crazy and experience the additional loneliness that I always experience when people are crazy, which is just meaning they're not looking at large chunks of the data in front of them. And so anyway, it's wonderful to have in the very, very limited sample, right? Robert's balancing it out as being an example of, a very positive relationship with life and with Lazaris, with marriage, etc. And perhaps it was discovering Lazaris in my teens, and not having much exposure to concept synergy, etc. Because I couldn't afford it as a 13-year-old to go off and do, $600 workshops and all that. And I could afford the forum, I think, by the time I was 21 or whatever. And, I managed to buy a computer, and I left home at 17 and, was just kind of working my way through, just, learning skills, basically. Just the way Lazaris talked about everything and being the most luminous being to ever touch the planet, it sounded pretty perfect, right? And so that's kind of the image that has stuck. I think Robert is quite appropriate, meaning it's far more useful to imagine, human beings with various natures, with limited competencies and all that, doing the best they can in various ways, because that seems to be a good representation of reality. I think that as I reframe Lazaris to being an energy pattern at a point in time that is going to be consumed by other energy patterns as all life transforms into more and more intelligent shapes over time, rather than the be-all and end-all. And that concept synergy is, an energy pattern at a point in time that is better than some and worse than others, and will be consumed by other energy patterns over time that are more intelligent. That leads to an appreciation of what is. And so I think Robert, first of all, I like to learn from people who are more competent than I am. And Robert seems about 3 times more competent than I am at framing things in a way that can both benefit his life and enrich his life, and hopefully not go too crazy. In the what has to be blocked out in order to see the positive. But overall, this has been a very nice experience. To see someone having a great relationship with themselves, their partner, the Lazaris material, and if I'm not mistaken, it's been a while since the last person filled out the form, but all the forms I recall seeing so far have been, Lazaris is a scam, da, da, da. Also too lazy in some way to fill out all the details, right? Just what a scam, whatever. And neither of those are ideal as it is to kind of see where the benefit is coming. Like I'd love to learn, which techniques of the techniques Robert's used have worked for him. I would say that the morning meditation, the crisis tape, some of the peripheral stuff that I've gathered, certain key philosophical ideas that haven't necessarily worked, but I think you have to have some kind of a map of reality, and they seem as good as any that I've found. And then the healing the inner child work and healing the inner adolescent was the single biggest boost I experienced in my reality. I experienced that as a teenager. So those were the things that worked for me. And then ironically, when I developed chronic fatigue at age 23, one tiny little $10 crystal did more for me than $60,000 of Lazaris crystals or concept synergy crystals, as far as I can tell, because it just was that one rainbow that would get me out of bed in the morning, and it's just a $10 crystal random from a little rock shop. But that sparked an interest. Like, this crystal can break through the chronic fatigue a little bit, so that kind of opened a little bit of the doorway. Into being interested. I've always been interested in what actually affects me the most. And so Robert affects me in a hopeful way. So thank you, and congratulations to Robert.